What is going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and today's day 8 of training camp. So second day of pads. It is the 7th day of on-field practice, and workouts, exercises, drills, etc., etc. So let's get into it. As usual, I have my, news and notes from Alan Pupar, since he's really the only real source that I can get it from. Although, again, I will try and, increase my sources if I can. But anyway, so let's get into this. There's a couple articles that he put out that I want to go through. One of them has to do with Jakeem Grant. As you will see here, Grant not planning on going anywhere. Jakeem Grant has big plans for 2021, and they involve receiver, returns, and the Miami Dolphins. So, let's just keep it real, though. Obviously, Jakeem Grant has been trying to, find a place in the receiving corps. Obviously, he's one of the best returners in the league. But he has had his struggles, getting onto the field as a receiver, in part because they haven't always used him properly, and also because, of some difficulties catching the ball on occasion. So, it is what it is, but we'll see. It is definitely going to be very interesting to see how this wide receiver group, shakes out after cutdowns. After each preseason game, there is scheduled to be a set of cutdowns. So I believe it's after the first preseason game, they have to cut down to 85. And then after the second, I believe it's 80. And then, I think they have to do the rest of the trim downs after sometime between after the third game and the start of the season. So anyway, let's get into this real quick. After the Dolphins loaded up at wide receiver in the offseason with the acquisitions of Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle to complement the return of 2020 opt-outs Albert Wilson and Allen Hurns, it was tempting to write off Jakeem Grant. More than tempting, it was almost logical. But Grant isn't thinking about his place on the Miami Dolphins roster. He's thinking about how he can build on a 2020 season that saw him set career highs as a receiver and earn second-team All-Pro honors as a punt returner. This is what Grant said when asked Wednesday whether he's thinking at all about where he stands in the wide receiver core. Honestly, not at all. I've been betting on myself my whole life, and it's not going to stop now. What's led to the thought that Grant's days with the Dolphins might be numbered is the fact that Waddle was a dynamic returner at Alabama, and he certainly could handle that role in the NFL. And let's also note that the Dolphins have in fact been using him quite a bit, at least in practice thus far, in the return game and at practice, fielding punts and stuff like that. So, and Grant, which I've mentioned, numerous times, I don't want him back there, especially when you do have a number of other guys that can do it. I just think it's way too big of a risk to take, because if he got hurt, that would just be a disaster on a number of levels. And Grant's value with the Dolphins since he arrived as a 6th-round pick in the 2016 NFL Draft certainly has been more as a returner than a receiver. But for a 6th-round pick, though, I think he's produced pretty good value. One of the best returners in the league, and if used properly, can be, a dynamic gadget piece on offense. The fact that he's already the best returner in franchise history, while obviously impressive, might not be enough to save his roster spot heading into 2021. Besides the 4 players mentioned earlier, the Dolphins also have at wide receiver Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, 2020 third-round pick Lynn Bowden, and special teams contributors Matt Collins and Robert Foster, who has been one of the stars of camp so far. Don't forget Kirk Merritt, who I believe was actually running with the ones today for portions of practice. So he seems to be, pretty rapidly rising up the depth chart there. That's too many wide receivers for the number of roster spots, likely 6. I think that they'll probably keep 7. They kept 7 last year, especially with how, Fuller's going to have to miss the first game for sure because of his suspension. And, these guys be getting hurt a lot. So I think they'll probably keep 7 and then at least 2 or 3 on the practice squad that are going to be allotted for the position. So what's What's going to happen is some very good receivers are going to be released, or perhaps one of them could end up being traded. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought about being traded or anything like that, Grant said. I want to be here. Of course I want to be here. I've been here 6 years, and I wouldn't have agreed to an extension if I wanted to be somewhere else. I love being here. I've got a lot of good friends here, and so my main thing is just continue to go out there and show what I got. Head coach Brian Flores was asked about Grant before practice Wednesday, specifically about how much he values the return game in determining roster spots. I think there's a lot of value in having an explosive returner who can flip the field and flip field position and score. Flores said, I think we all see the value in that. Jakeem obviously is very explosive. He's obviously productive, not only as a returner, but as a receiver as well. We're happy to have him. I mean, you know, this dude gives, you know, just very vague ass, you know, generic, bland answers. So, and that really was no different. We'll keep working. Obviously, there's a lot of competition in that room. With Parker, Fuller, and Williams having done little to no work this camp this summer, it's given every other receiver a chance at more opportunities, and so for Grant has made the best, and so far Grant has made the most of them. As he pointed out himself, he had some drops last year, though he did set career highs in receptions and yards after injuries gave him more offensive snaps. But the highlights of this season again was the return game, and it was as a punt return that he earned second team All-Pro recognition from the Associated Press. It means it meant honestly, and then I will say it made me more humble, Grant said, and I took the approach that with Ricky Bobby saying, if you're not first, you're last. So I want to be first team All-Pro, and that's my goal this year, and I'm going to continue to do what I have to do at practice so I can reach those goals in the game. It's made me extremely hungry, and knowing that I had a career high in receptions and yards, it just made me want to go out and get it on both ends, offense and returns. So we'll see how that pans out. As you guys know, I like Jakeem Grant. I've been a Jakeem Grant fan, in large part because of how scrappy he is, and he's always been kind of an underdog, whatever. So, you know, I've been a Jakeem Grant fan. I hope they do keep him around. I think he stands a chance, for sure, especially because of his ability in the return game, and I would rather have him returning kicks and punts or whatever than Jalen Waddle, if I'm being honest. So, all right, now let's get into his news and notes from training camp. Dolphins training camp day 8, practice observations. Get rid of this here little ad really fast because it's in the way. Highlights, lowlights, and anecdotes from Dolphins practice. So, let's see. Wide receiver Devontae Parker is back at, Dolphins again practicing pads. Parker is back at practice after being limited Monday in his camp debut and sitting out Tuesday. He didn't do very much though, from what I can tell. He was limited, but he is back. So, and you know, he was there a couple days ago. So hopefully that's progress, and hopefully he's, you know, working his way back and should be back soon. Excuse me. Let's see. Also missing from practice were Xavier Howard, Will Fuller, linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, and running back Malcolm Brown. The first offense versus defense drill of practice is a one-on-one half-field red zone drill. It's a drill that heavily favors the offense and therefore produces a lot of completions. So, you know, real quick, let's just mention that yesterday obviously was a very run-heavy day when it came to the offense, and as we all know, the defense pretty much just dominated them. By all accounts, it seems like the offense did have a better day, although there were still some mistakes and some things to learn from. But they did have a better day, it seems, by all accounts. But this does, you know, have something to do with it, of course, right? Just like yesterday, you can absolutely say that, you know, it was a run-heavy day and the defense knew what the plays were going to be and so on and so forth. And so that could be part of the reason for sure. It definitely is part of the reason why they had so much success. You could also say the same thing about how the offense, you know, did better today, right? Because it was the way that things were schemed up in practice. The point of the practice was to practice certain things. So yesterday, you know, the run game on both sides of the ball was a heavy emphasis. Obviously, the defense won that one. So, you know, we have to wait and see if the run offense is, gonna improve or if they're gonna be bad or whatever, right? But the point is you can cut this in multiple different ways. But this is why I don't get emotionally involved to this point, man. And I'm not gonna until the start of the regular season, right? Because that's when it actually matters. That's when it counts. That's when, you can either win or lose and it goes on your record. That's when it's going to be live bullets. That's when you're going to actually start to see teams, dig into their playbook. It's not going to be vanilla offenses and defensive schemes like it will be in the preseason. But at least with the preseason, that'll be the first time that I actually get to put my eyes on the team, and they will be going up against a different opponent as opposed to just themselves. So next week for me is a huge week, is a really big week. And then obviously I can't wait for the regular season. But, that's why, like I said, though, I keep myself tempered. I don't get my emotions into it until it actually counts. Because there's no point, right? There's no point. I've had too many experiences, not just as a Dolphins fan, but in life in general, of getting burned and disappointed that I'd rather be surprised at the end of the day, pleasantly surprised, than disappointed. So I prepare for the worst, I hope for the best, and I don't let myself get emotionally involved when there's no reason to. Right? Because if I go, for example, if I go getting all super hyped up and be like, and look, I believe in Tua, I think he's going to be fine. Obviously he's healthy, and that's a key difference between last year and this year. And I'm not really worried about him. I think he's going to do his thing. My biggest concerns, as I've mentioned, well, number one to this point in training camp is the injury/COVID. Number two is the offensive line. And number three is the secondary without Howard and, in particular, and behind Howard and Jones, the top two guys. But specifically and most importantly with Howard being out because of the kind of production that he gives you. If I get hyped up and say, oh, the offensive line's going to be a lot better and Tua's going to ball out and the defense is unquestionably going to be in the top 10 and, all these things, well then, and then if they don't pan out like that, well then it's going to be massively disappointing. And I don't see any reason to set myself up for that, right? But the same thing goes the other way, right? Like at this point in camp, I'm not going to get emotionally invested in the bad stuff either. I'm going to let this stuff play out. I'm going to wait until I can put my eyes on the team during preseason, and then I'll start getting emotionally invested when the actual season rolls around and stuff actually counts, right? Okay, so let's move on. Isaiah Ford goes up to catch a Tua fade in the corner of the end zone. Terrell Bonds jumps in front of Kai Loxley on an inside route and picks off Jacoby Brissett in that drill. Bonds, it needs to be said, has been very good in training camp. Parker did not take part in that drill. Next is an 11-11 session that begins with a run, and the first defender to make contact is, of course, Benardrick McKinney. That is where what he did throughout practice Tuesday. And let's also mention, because I hadn't said this, today, obviously yesterday was run heavy. Today they have, mixed it up. It was a lot more mixed today. They did a bit of both. So Albert Wilson drops a perfect throw from Tua on the third play of 11-11s. Parker, and from what I have, heard and so on and so forth to this point, there were a few drops today too. So one of the things that needs to be worked on the offense. Parker takes part in 11-11 drill and catches about a 15-yard pass from Tua. Rookie running back Garrett Dokes had a solid run up the middle. And they actually did have a few, decent run plays today. They still need to improve on it. They still need to work on it. And it's got a ways to go. But they actually did have some runs in that. So that's better than yesterday where they pretty much just got stuffed all day. Again, though, and to be fair, it was a run-heavy day, specifically focusing on that area. And the defense did, of course, know what was going on. So, obviously that's going to be something that's different in regular season games and even the preseason games too, is you're not going to know what your opponent is doing. Or at least, you're not going to know it before you even go into the huddle or step on the field, right? You're going to have to identify and figure it out. once they get into their set and you can start seeing what they're doing. Early in a 7-on-7 passing session, Tua had a long completion down the right sideline to Myles Gaskin. Isaiah Ford made a nice diving catch on a bomb from Brissett after beating Noah. Also, Noah's been having a really rough training camp by pretty much all accounts. So we'll see how that pans out. I mean, you guys know how I feel. I think that was not a good pick. You don't take a project in the first round. I thought it was a reach. So we'll see how it pans out. But one of the reasons why I have concerns about that secondary behind those top two guys. Rookie Trill Williams had a nice pass breakup on a bomb from Brissett intended for Merritt. Nick Needham broke up a Tua pass intended for Jalen Waddle that was thrown behind the receiver. Allen Hurns stayed down after trying to catch a deep sideline pass from Brissett that was broken up by Javaris Davis and immediately walked off the field with a trainer. Hurns later returned to practice. Yeah, I keep saying it, man. My number one issue right now, and unfortunately, and the thing, one of the worrisome parts about it is it seems like every day somebody else is getting hurt. So even if it's minor, right? Again, obviously minor means that they're probably going to come back and they may be all right, but that stuff adds up, and minor injuries can turn into major injuries, and they could get setbacks and re-hurt, re-injure and stuff. So the fact that they exist, especially in at this quantity and this early in the process, it is worrisome for me. So Tua threw short touchdown passes to Waddle and Wilson in 11-11 red zone session. Shaquem Griffin quickly got to quarterback Reed Sinnett later in that same session for what would have been a sack. Malcolm Perry joined Jalen Waddle as a kickoff returner and special teams. I hate that they're using him. Waddle, that is. I hate that they're using Waddle, but it is what it is, man. I swear, they better hope and pray, knock on wood, whatever it is, bro. They better do something to make sure that dude does not get hurt, because if he gets hurt, especially if it's because they use him on special teams, right? Like, I don't think it'll likely happen in practice, but if it were to happen, if knock on wood, whatever, if he's to get hurt, it's most likely gonna be in a game, because that's when things are a little bit more live. But I don't want to see it, man. I don't want to see him on special teams at all, because it just worries me. Anyway, Larnell Coleman started a later 11-on-11 drill as the right tackle with the first offense, with Jesse Davis wearing a baseball hat, as he's done a few times at the end of practices already. It seems like, some of these veterans are just being kind of given, easy practices because they don't see any reason to wear them out, which is fine and makes sense, right? So that's good. On the second play of that drill, Tua threw a beautiful pass over a defender into the hands of Wilson. Tua came back with a nice completion to Hunter Long after moving away from pressure from Brennan Scarlett. Rookie Javon Holland picked off a Tua pass downfield for Wilson that was overthrown. Dokes let a short pass from Brissett go right through his hands, reminiscent of the pass-catching issues he showed in the spring. On the very next play, it was Bowden's turn to drop an easy completion from Brissett. On a play where Griffin jumped offside, Brissett completed about a 50-yard touchdown pass to Hurns. Linebacker Sam McGuavin got through the line for a would-be sack of Sinnett on Sinnett's first snap of that team period. Sinnett drilled a pass to Kirk Merritt for a completion despite tight coverage. Scarlett had good pressure on Sinnett on the final play of the session. Jason Sanders had his first field goal miss of camp when his kick bounced off the upright. Tua had a nice 23-yard completion to Waddle on a 2-minute drill. Brissett had a deep completion down the left sideline to Isaiah Ford, who's had himself a very solid camp. So, I still doubt that Isaiah Ford's going to make it onto the roster. There is some chance, I guess, that he could end up on the practice squad. Let me go ahead and switch this back. But we'll see. So look, after today's practice, by all accounts, it seemed to have been, a solid day. There were some up and downs, but it looks like the offense had a better overall day than they did yesterday, which is good to see. Although, again, and I just have to stress this, man, because I think people really need to take this to heart. You have to temper yourself, right? Whether it's good or it's bad. make yourself calm down, right? Like, especially when it comes to good things, not to be a Debbie Downer or anything like that, but especially when it comes to good things, right? And again, I say this from, you know, a place of concern for people, because I have spent so much of my life getting disappointed, walked on, used, abused, taken advantage of, etc., that, you know, you really, I've had so many plans of mine fail because of, you know, outside factors that have, you know, whatever. So like, you got to temper yourself. Don't let yourself get too emotionally involved, or, you know, if you can, don't get emotionally involved at all. Just wait. Let's wait. It's still, you know, just training camp. It's still just practice. They're still only going up against each other. At least next week in practice, they're going to have some time against a different opponent, you know, practicing against the Bears. Then we're going to actually get to see a little bit of them in the preseason game against the Bears. But don't let yourself get emotionally involved until the start of the season, until it counts. And because then that way too, not only do you spare yourself, you know, potential emotional heartache, but then it also allows you to have a more objective and unbiased evaluation of everything going on between now and then, right? So that way you don't blind yourself to the worries and to the concerns and to the bad things, and you don't get yourself caught up in the good things and ignore those other things, right? So yeah, anyway, that's really all I got. You know, obviously we, what's today? Today's Wednesday, right? Yep. So today's Wednesday. So I think they got another, 2 or 3 days of practice this week, before they have a day or two break, before they go into next week's practice. Obviously, next week they are going to have some joint sessions with the Chicago Bears, as I previously mentioned. And then we will have our first preseason game. So sometime shortly after that, they're going to have to make cuts down to 85. So, you know, things are going to start getting spicier and spicier. There's definitely going to be more and more information to take in, absorb, and glean from what we see and what we hear over the next, you know, few weeks, you know, with every day that passes. But just take it all in, absorb it all in, and put it in a little chest. Lock that chest away until the preseason game actually comes around. Then open up that chest and verify for yourself, when you put your eyes on the team, is the offensive line doing well? Are they opening up running lanes? How's the running game doing? How's Tua looking? How are these wide receivers? Also keep in mind that first preseason game, we probably won't see a ton from the starters, so keep that in mind. But yeah, and then obviously we're going to have to do, you know, evaluations of depth and who stands out in the second and third teams, etc. So there's going to be a lot of information to glean. And even when it comes to the preseason, right, that's still just an information gathering exercise, right? You know, for me, since I'll be able to actually put my eyes on it, that's when I feel like I'll start to be able to get a better picture of how this team's going to look. But, you know, until training camp and the preseason is done and we're getting ready to start the preseason, or excuse me, the regular season, you know, you just have to take all that information and use it as contextual data for later. Anyway, you know, and then after the final preseason game and, you know, whatever, we'll start doing, you know, updated predictions. I'll do an updated prediction on what I think. Obviously, before training camp and everything, I was saying 6-11. I'm still holding to that, because I even said before then that, you know, I said at the time, even if they do manage to keep Xavier Howard, and, you know, even though I do have, you know, faith in Tua and his ability, especially now that he's healthy, it's not all about that, right? Those two guys, the rest of the team has to pan out too, and things have to work out there. And there's just so many question marks and concerns that I still think that they're going to be a 6-win team. But we will see. And of course, I hope they prove me wrong. And up to this point, my evaluation of that hasn't changed. because again, there are still a ton of question marks and concerns, and we don't know what this team's going to be yet. So anyway, there will be an updated, prediction or whatever right before the season begins. And then we'll see how things go from there. Anyway, I got to get up out of here because I really have nothing else to add. That is training camp of day 8. And here shortly, in about 25-30 minutes, I will be going on to Reason's show and, probably getting on the panel, hopefully again, during the open portion if he has one. Otherwise, I will just, be watching his show and get, the expanded information that he has. He's got more sources than I do. So yeah, it's gonna be good times. And also, like I said, for this first preseason game, I intend to join Reason's live stream for it. I will obviously be watching, the game myself on my screen, but I will not be doing a live stream on my channel. I will be joining Reason's on Finside the NFL on his show. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna get out of here. Hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.